We are all recording now and we're gonna be live on the internet. So this will be the official video, episode 6 of the Trevor Abusafi Loves Northwest Edmonton show with special guest Erin Rutherford, candidate for Edmonton City Council, Ward Anirniq. Hi, Erin. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we love having you here. Anything to add more local content for people to see in Northwest Edmonton? As you probably know, that's what I'm all about. And a good chunk of the Anirniq ward is north of the Yellowhead and west of 97th Street, which is sort of my focal area. There's a bunch of parts for the ward, I know, south of the Yellowhead too. So like Sherbrooke, Inglewood, those kind of neighborhoods are all in there as well. So hopefully people that are, maybe outside of the regular zone for me are going to get to see this as well. So our friends from that part of the city are going to hopefully tune into this, and we're going to get you in front of some people and they can hopefully hear your message. So why don't we start this today? You can tell us a little bit about yourself. I said I was going to ask you some questions here. And yeah, so let's just start with a little bit of your biography. What brings you to running for city council? Where do you come from? Where are you going? What's happening with Erin Rutherford?
Thanks, Trevor. Well, first of all, I want to say I was born and raised in Alberta, and so I'm an Albertan at heart and fully love this city. I've been living in Edmonton now for 20 years, so moved here basically as a young adult, and I haven't left since, and live in this ward now since 2017. So I moved to the North End in 2017, and I have to say, before we get into anything else, just how welcoming this community has been. Like when we moved into our new home, every single neighbor within probably the block radius came and welcomed us. And that to me just sums up some of the character of this community in this ward. Mm-hmm. And, it's probably why I'll never leave. But
absolutely.
So that's kind of what brings me to living where I do. I reside in Inglewood, actually. So I do live on the south side of the ward. And I live with my partner, Rob. We've been married for 10 years. We have 2 beautiful children. They're in elementary. And we adopted a cat named a cat named Olive, and our dog named Clover. We also had joined our family during the COVID year, like many other people. So we have a full house now. But I think that what's really important for me in my run for council is my experience that's led me to where I am today. And I have worked in public administration for over 11, almost 12 years now. And through that, I've learned to create actionable steps that lead to change and long-term transformation from within the organization, which is, I think, is something that really is a strength and an asset that helps in terms of then switching to council role, but understanding how administration works and how to actually create change within administration. I've worked across multiple areas as well within a municipality. So I think that's another unique quality about me that I think is really important to highlight. So even though I've worked in public sector for 11, I've had quite diverse experience working in the social services sector and community development, doing research, working on corporate planning and budgets, working with human resources, working on even capital infrastructure projects. So I've had quite a diversity of experience over my time, which I think really gives me a rich understanding of municipal work. But overall, I think what my experience has really taught me is how to best serve the interests of the people we as municipalities are trying to serve, and bringing together diverse opinions to really bring forward the best change for the region. So that's something that I think is part of my experience that I want to highlight. I do have a master's degree as well in community development, and I think that's really important to highlight as well because of the why I got the master's degree.
Mhm.
Education is important, and I'm a lifelong learner. And even though I now have my degree, I still continue to learn every day and learn from the people around me. I think individuals are experts in their own lives, and I'm always constantly wanting to learn from that. But community itself has meant so much to me, and is so much a part of who I am, both at work and at home, that I just really wanted to sharpen those skills so that I could be making a bigger difference and a bigger impact. So
Great.
that was my drive for getting that master's.
All right. So you have masters in community development. That's obviously going to give you a good leg up on a city council role. I'm with you on the knowing that or the really welcoming nature of this corner of town. People that live in, Inglewood and Sherbrooke, I'm sure are not that different from those of us that live in Lauderdale and Roslyn. It's kind of the same age and location in the city. Like the houses are all about the same age, sort of that community built up in the 50s, working class type of neighborhoods. And I've had the exact same experience. I grew up on the south side here. So where like I grew up close to Bonnie Doon and it was a great neighborhood. But when I moved to the north side, it would just found it so easy to connect with people. And that's why I kind of fell in love with the Northwest. And I completely agree with you. The people in this part of town are fantastic. And we need people who are going to represent us and who are involved in the community. Like, so if you're out getting to know people in the community, that's really an important thing I think for our city councilors to have. We've got some right now that are more involved and some that are less involved. And as somebody who follows municipal politics, I certainly know who those people are. Then I can tell the ones that are getting involved in the community and the ones that aren't. So that's good to hear. I'm going to, since I have had my computer now running on battery power for an hour and a half, it's telling me it's going to run dead. So I'm going to go grab my charger real quick and then I'm going to plug the computer in. So just bear with me for one more second here while I plug things in and I will get back to the next question I have for you. Okay.
Sounds good.
Moments later.
All right, we're back now. So like I said, we can edit that out if I can figure out how to do any video edit. Okay, so great. That's thanks for sharing a little bit of your bio there. You said you're born in Alberta, but you moved to Edmonton 20 years ago. Do you mind me asking where you were born?
Well, I was born in Edmonton and lived in Edmonton until I was about 3, and then moved to rural Alberta, just north of St. Albert in a town called Morinville is where I grew up.
I know where Morinville is. That's pretty close. Got to drive past there on the way to see my friends at Slave Lake. So we go through Morinville all the time. All right.
Yeah, so even though I lived outside of Edmonton, Edmonton was always a place that we would be constantly coming to as a kid. And my grandpa grew up in the north end of Edmonton as well. So I did spend a lot of time here even growing up.
Oh yeah, and Morinville is one of those communities for people who aren't, directly connected into the Northwest. If you're like say if you were in the southeast and you were living in Mill Woods, you probably had friends that lived in Beaumont, or if you lived in the West End, you knew people that lived in Sherwood Park. Morinville is sort of like in that St. Albert community. If you know the people in St. Albert, you're in the northwest part of town, you have friends that grew up in Morinville. So Morinville is really well connected to this part of the city. So even though you weren't in the city boundaries, you still probably hear a lot, experience in the city, as especially in this ward. So I mean, I'd be happy to call you a native to this part of town for your whole life if that's where you've been, is Morinville. You're not that far out. So okay, so the first question, and I like to ask just to give you a little bit of a preface, last year during the federal election debate, I reached out to all of the candidates that were running for federal office. 3 different wards in this portion of the city and asked them all the same questions. I got responses back from a few of them. Some of them messaged me after the campaign and said, hey, I was just a paper candidate. I never intended actually on getting elected, which I thought was kind of funny. Why spend the effort to run a campaign if you're not going to respond to anybody? But the ones that did, I was very appreciative of. And I kind of, I threw some political questions out there. Not, I didn't want anybody to feel like I was leading them down a particular path. I wanted to be as neutral as possible. So that's kind of my goal here, is the same thing. I want to ask you some general questions about what you intend to do. And especially because this is a municipal election, party politics doesn't play as heavily into municipal politics as it does in, say, a federal or a provincial election. So if anybody watching has any of those specific questions you want to ask about policy, they can go right to your website, I'm assuming, and ask you those questions here. But this goal here for these questions is just to get a general feel for how you would represent the people of the Anirniq ward if you're elected to city council. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I'm
great.
excited to
Hopefully everybody's
have
on the same page here. So the first question I wanted to ask is, what specific campaign issues are most important to you in this election?
So I think there's a lot of issues that are really important, and ones that are coming forward to council and ones that are in the middle of having decisions made about them. But I think, to me, one of the prevailing issues that this new council is going to have to deal with is taking stock of the effects of COVID-19 on our local businesses, our communities as a whole, and also the most vulnerable in our communities as well. And then having a tangible plan for recovery. It's something I'm really passionate about. And so I see that as a huge issue for this council coming up, and something that we need to be coming up with that concrete plan. I also am really passionate about creating an Edmonton for all, and especially a Northwest for all. And what I mean by that is addressing some of the systemic inequality that we're seeing within our society and within our city as well. And that really, to me, boils down to making sure that we have equal opportunity for all our residents to succeed and to thrive. And so that isn't not an issue in and of itself, but it's something that for me weaves into so many of the decision making that happens at council, from your transit and the bus network redesign to budgeting to even big capital infrastructure projects like the Yellowhead Trail Freeway conversion program. We need to be thinking about how is this creating those opportunities for residents within Edmonton. I also really want to focus on creating a city that works for all Edmontonians. So, the 3 kind of things that really stick out in my mind and keep coming back are that strong local economy. When you think about local economy, for me, that also means, like, how many times is the money circulating within our own communities, right? And so a strong local economy, I think a healthy environment. So really looking at sustainability and addressing some environmental issues, and looking for how we can run a clean city. And then also just social well-being as a whole, connectedness, belonging, housing, all of those issues are ones that I think issues that intersect with that idea and that concept.
Okay, great. So I wanted to ask you just a follow up there. When you say you want to have a strategic plan to go forward from the COVID recovery, one thing that I think the current version of City Council has done better than past versions is they have done a good job of making plans that extend out beyond the current city or the current 4-year, between elections plan. We've had some good 5 and 10-year infrastructure plans put into place. When Don Iveson was first elected mayor, that was really one of the strong things that he spearheaded, was making good solid plans that were more than just a couple of years ahead and based on today's budget and what we were going to do. And it's that kind of thing that has led to, like you mentioned, the Yellowhead freeway expansion, the completion of the Anthony Henday, the new LRT lines that we have, because all of those things were put into 5 and 10-year plans. So I'm assuming if you go on to council and you're working with the people who have been working on this council making those kind of plans, what are you going to suggest to as possible options for the COVID recovery strategy? Are there any specific ideas you have about like what the city can do to help, bring the economy back and take care of, like you mentioned, transit and infrastructure and housing and equity programs? Is there specific things you have in mind to bring to the council meetings when those plans are being made to facilitate that COVID recovery?
That's a great point, Trevor. And I think for me, I do have ideas. I always have ideas for solutions and how we can move forward with that. What I do want to say, though, is that I think I need to understand more how residents of Edmonton have really been impacted and have some data, because I'm really about also informed decision making. And
Right.
not only informed decision in terms of data, but informed decision making in terms of listening to people and hearing their experiences and their ideas and making sure that I'm bringing those to the forefront. I agree with you. I think there have been some great plans that have been developed by the city of Edmonton. And I think that sometimes, though, in my experience with public administration, plans don't always come to full fruition. So
Well,
one of my questions, or one of my roles as council is, if we do create a plan or we have a plan that we believe in, how are we actually making sure, with a lot of uncertainty in terms of budget and economy and, even the COVID's not over yet, right? So in terms of a lot of uncertainty, how do we make sure that that plan is actionable and responsive to changing realities? So I know that's probably not the answer you wanted in terms of specific, but for me, it's about really making sure we get an answer for what people are experiencing and focusing on getting some really informed data to make a strong plan and one that works for all Edmontonians.
good. Well, I'm happy to follow along with well decided plans that are based on strong data. I think that when you're dealing with, there's always going to be a diversity of opinions, and regardless of the jurisdiction, whether it's within the council ward or whether it's the whole city or whether it's just within the council chambers amongst the council members, you're going to have a diversity of opinion, and having good input into making those decisions is what makes the best decisions for the majority of people. So if you can take that data and make a decision that the majority of people can come up and get behind, and you can explain it to people, I think that that's a good way to do it. So I am happy for that answer. I will take it. And thank you for your candidness there. I'll see, now my phone doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, all right. So we've touched on the campaign issue there. My biggest complaint always with politicians is that they tend to take their own ideology or the party platform that they were elected on, if it's a provincial or municipal, and then make decisions for the entire area that they represent based on and there's reason to do that. If you market yourself as a conservative or as a liberal or as a progressive and you're elected on doing those particular ideas, you want to use those ideas in your decision making, but they're not going to accurately represent everybody within the ward all of the time. So I would like to know, given the diversity of opinions in the Anirniq ward, what do you, or how do you intend to address the inevitable problem of having these personal and ideological differences between yourself and the people who are trying to have their voices heard as your potential representatives?
The thing I always try to remember with regards to this is that everybody is living in this ward and in this city because they love this ward and they love this city, and they've chosen to make these places their home. And so what my goal is as a city councilor, if I'm elected, is to make sure that we have a strong ward and a strong city. And that means that we probably all want that. It's just we have different opinions on how we're actually going to get there. So I think for me, part of my role as in public life is to make sure that I'm a representative for everyone. And that means that I have an obligation and a commitment to make sure that while I have ideas and solutions that I'm bringing forward as well, that it's important to really take into consideration and listen and understand the values and perspectives and why certain decisions or certain perspectives and certain ways to go about it are important to those that I represent. I also don't think it's compromising my values personally, because 3 of the values that I have on my website that are very near and dear to my heart are integrity. And what I say about integrity on the website is that, that I'm working hard every day to make sure that I listen for what's important to those that I am representing. And whether I agree with it or not, I think one of the reasons that municipal government has always drawn me and continues to be the place I chose to run is because you don't have to be tied to a specific party line or ideology, that you really can listen and learn and grow as an individual and as a representative if you're open to that with your residents. I also think the other values that align with this topic are courage, right? I'm not afraid to have hard conversations and make hard decisions. And I think that that's really important too. So I will have those tough conversations with all constituents within our ward. And I will have those hard conversations with my other members of council, right? To really advocate for what my residents are, what's important for the residents of this ward. And finally, I think it's really important to highlight compassion as well, because I think this is a really big piece of that tension between your personal beliefs and when you're representing a diverse group of people, is that I always strive to understand where people are coming from, understand their struggles, understand their strengths and their joys, and make decisions that will always help rather than harm. So those are the values that I think if I live those values within my work every day as a city councilor, then I wouldn't feel that listening to or hearing the diverse opinions and representing them on council would be a compromise.
Good. All right. I completely agree with you about how sometimes not sometimes, one of the great things about municipal politics is oh, here, you can see my cat over there. She likes to make sometimes special guest appearances on the show, as well as my kids.
Yeah.
One of the great things about municipal politics is you can have good direct access to your representatives, right? You're usually somebody that lives in the community. In fact, you have to live inside your ward in order to run for city council. You can't just be a parachute candidate from a party who comes from Ottawa or Calgary or somewhere else to fill a seat. And that means people usually have to, councillors usually do a much better job of listening to the specific needs of their constituents, and keeping in mind that, like you said, there is going to be a lot of diversity in this group. There's we have a really wide economic diversity in Anirniq. There's some upper end houses, some new houses, some lower end houses, some working class people, some white collar people. There's all kinds of different people. And one of the things that I always lament about is it seems like we get lost in this corner of the city, right? The other things are always getting done in the south before they're getting done in the north, and especially in the northwest, right? Like we don't have a city operated rec facility outside of Grand Trunk. We have the YMCA, which is a private, which is a great facility, but when they're building new facilities for recreation purposes, they did the Clairview one, they've got the Terwilliger one, they've got the Lewis Estates one going in, right? They've got trains being built to the southwest and the south side and the west end, and last on the list is going to be the old Castle Downs line up to from Blatchford and over the freeway. So I think if you are inclined to listen to the people in the ward and really hear what they're saying and be a good advocate, I think that that's a good strategy for any council person in this part of town, to listen to the diversity of opinions, hear what people are saying, and communicate with them, right? I'm a big fan of integrity. You mentioned integrity, so like that's not just a buzzword for me. So I'm happy to hear you say those those words out loud. Something we're missing in politics at every level these days is integrity.
Trevor,
Yeah.
sorry,
Oh,
you bring
no,
up
go
a
ahead.
really good point about that. Is that something that is really near and dear to my heart, and I see it all too often as well, is that words are just words, and sometimes they're great words and sometimes they're hurtful words, but the reality is what's the action and what's the intention that's matched with those words.
Absolutely.
And so what I commit to in my campaign, and if I'm elected to city council, is making sure that my words match my actions, and that there is that integrity that I'm bringing through, and that I am truly listening to and advocating. Like you said, I love that word advocacy. I advocate every day in my job from the inside out. And so, taking that and advocating for the North is something that I absolutely believe in. We have to ask ourselves, why over the last 8 years have those decisions been being made? How are we being represented right now? And is it time for new energy?
Right, absolutely. I tell my kids constantly that integrity is two things. It's telling people what you're going to do and then doing what you said you were going to do. So you hit the nail right on the head for me there. Thank you. When your actions match your words and your words match your actions, that's more than you get from most people these days. So thank you. Let's go on to the next question here. And I think you kind of touched on this already a little bit in your bio, but maybe you can flesh out a little bit. What are the reasons you decided to seek public office? You'd said that you kind of have a heart for advocacy here, and you've got this background in community organization, but just kind of talk to the people about what is really driving you to seek this public office.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Trevor. And it's one that I try to synthesize and whittle down because I think it's so multifaceted. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, I've always felt a call and a passion for public service, as working in admin, but also with the ultimate hope of someday serving the people in an elected role. And through my time in public administration, I've really developed my leadership. So now I feel that I have the skills and ability at this critical time to be a fresh leadership that's needed right now on council. So I think that's my ultimate drive. But, we've already talked about it, but it's really important to say again, is I also really see the need and want to be that strong representative and advocate for our ward and for the Northwest, and bring those fresh ideas, but those fresh ideas that are backed with skills and experience to City Hall, and that will ultimately lead to action.
Great. Excellent. Thank you for that answer. Another question here I wanted to ask you, what do you most want the people to know about you as a candidate, and why should they vote for you? Why Erin Rutherford as opposed to one of the other candidates?
Thanks, Trevor. Well, I think, the first thing I really want the people that are looking at this and wondering who to vote for is to know that my heart is really, and my ultimate goal is to serve and to have a relationship with the people of Ward Anirniq. It's a key piece of what I bring as a leadership skill. And I'm really proud to be a resident of this ward. We have a strong community. We are a vibrant part of Edmonton that is right. Sometimes we are overlooked. And I'm really proud for the opportunity to bring our voice to council and to work together to build a better future for all of us. I think I bring a lot of skills in my past experience and knowledge that allow me to do this job well. And one example that I'll highlight is, I can have the greatest ideas in the world, but I'm still only one vote on council. And so one of the things that I've had to do in my career is really work collaboratively and collectively with diverse people to come together and find a way forward on issues. And so I think I have that skill to actually really work well with whomever's elected to city council and to really be coming together for that best interest of Edmonton as a whole. It's that idea that we need that brokering for solutions. So I would be a good broker when I get in there. And really that is what I want people to remember about me as they're thinking about my name on election day.
Good. All right. I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball here.
Sure.
Before we wrap things up, I got one. Do you have a prediction currently who you think the next mayor is going to be?
I don't. I'm undecided right now. I think I'm watching all of the current candidates closely to see what they're bringing forward, but I really don't know at this point. I don't have a prediction for the mayoral candidate.
Are there any mayoral candidates that you think you would be better suited to working with? Is there anybody you see there that you really say, I could really get something done if that person was the mayor? Or do you want to keep that information in your back pocket for now?
No, I think that it's a great question, and it's a valid question in terms of, again, I can work with almost anybody. I can work with people of such diverse backgrounds, and I have a proven track record of that with my career, that I look at all the current mayoral candidates and I see that the values and what's important and what's driving their work, and I see opportunity in working with every single one of them if they were elected and I was elected to successfully bring to successfully benefit Edmonton as a whole. So I think I see aspects in all of those mayoral candidates.
That's great. Good. That's what I like to hear. Because you're not going to, you get one vote for mayor, but regardless of who the mayor ends up being, if you're on council, you're going to have to work with whoever that is, right? It could be a lot of different people at this rate. We just know it's not going to be Don Iveson. So
yeah,
good to hear. I think we're coming up to close to a half an hour here of chatting. So I guess, that's thank you very much for your time. I don't want to suck up any more of your afternoon with my bad technical skills on the computer here. So is there anything else that you want to let the people watching this know about your candidacy? Have we missed anything? Is there anything you want to specifically say that we haven't talked about?
No, just that I'm looking forward to getting out and meeting more of the great people in this ward and learning more about what is important to them and what issues are important for me to be bringing forward. So I'm looking forward to getting out there and meeting all the wonderful people in our ward. People can contact me at any point through my website, erinrutherford.ca. We have a contact sheet, so you can just fill out an inquiry there and we will get back to you. And again, the last thing I cannot, and I would be remiss to not do this, is say, running a big city campaign and running up against an incumbent takes a lot of resources. So if you think you have skills or talent or treasures that could benefit my campaign, I would love to talk to you about that.
Great. That's good to hear. You're right. Do you know anything if Bev Esslinger is planning to run again in the ward? I've heard rumors she is, but she hasn't registered as a candidate yet. Do you have some inside knowledge on that that I don't have?
I think she is registered now as a candidate the last time I checked the Edmonton
Okay.
Elections website.
I
So,
haven't looked this week, so you might be
yes.
absolutely correct about that.
Yeah, so I think she is registered now and absolutely intends to seek re-election.
Okay, excellent. And your website, erinrutherford.ca, is that the best place that people can find you if they're looking for more information or want to get in contact or
Yes,
a donation?
that's the best place.
Okay, any social media feeds you want to plug here as well? I know you do have a Facebook page.
Yeah, I have Facebook. Hopefully it'll be linked to this video when it's on there, but I also have Erin for Anirniq as my Twitter handle as well. So you can find me on Twitter as well.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Erin. I think that was that's a great video for me to, or a great way for me to sign off and say thank you again. Appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to following you over the next few months here in this this civil election race that we're going to go through. So thanks
Thank
again.
you.
We'll sign off and we'll be in touch, and hopefully you get a whole bunch of people responding to this video. Eventually I will post it and we will share it to your page and all of that good stuff too. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time today, Trevor, and for asking me to be here to chat with you today.
No problem at all.